are you?
Good. I'm talking to Ellen Emmet. I think we're live. We're on the air.
Okay. No private talking, huh, Jerry? Just right on.
No, private. No, everything's.
Everything's private.
Don't worry. You'll see. This is how I conduct interviews. It's.
Okay. All right.
And I edit, so.
Yeah. So I can say inappropriate things and you'll cut them out.
No. I won't cut them out. Where are you? You're in UK.
I'm in Oxford, in the UK, where the weather is pretty iffy and has been for the past forever.
Yeah.
I don't know about where you're in Halifax. I don't. It's probably not there either.
It's sunny right now. Yeah, it's really nice.
That's good. I'm glad you.
Where are you from? Where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in New York City, but I moved to France, or I was moved to France as a tiny baby, and I was raised in France until the age of 18, and then I moved back to the States. So I'm really American, but actually really French in terms of. Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
I guess that makes me Canadian.
Yeah, you put those together, you're Canadian, basically, right? Yeah, that's basically what it equals. Yeah, well, yeah, you have a Canadian sensibility, I think. I don't know you that well, but from what I sense.
Well, I guess I don't know what that means because I don't know the Canadians well enough, but I'll take it as a compliment.
Well, you just said you're a Canadian. You said, if you're born in New York City and you're raised in French, you're Canadian.
Exactly.
That's it, period. All right. What else are we talking? That's the end of the interview. That's it.
All right.
I don't like to read long introductions, because, I rather people introduce themselves. So, like, if you're going to introduce yourself, like, what would you say? You don't have to get into your entire history, but we may get into that eventually. But
well, I guess in this context, I would. What would I say? I would say that. Well, I'm distracted because there are voices in the background. I would say that my name's Ellen, and that I'm a kind of psychotherapist, but with a non-dual orientation, but with a great deal of interest in exploring the experience of the body. Yeah. And I would say that you and I have connected because I saw something about authentic movement recently, and I sent you a message saying I know about authentic movement.
Yes, indeed you do, and well, a couple of things in that regard. First of all, the book that let me reach for it and get it. It's here somewhere. The book I guess is kind of an authoritative statement on it, called Offering from the Conscious Body, was written by Janet Adler, and in her acknowledgement she gives you a very nice acknowledgement, and the context of it is just a second, let me look it up. I have the book in hard copy and in Kindle, actually.
Oh, really?
I bought it in Kindle. I find it's easy to do book reviews in
Kindle. Yeah,
because you can copy and paste, and I prefer Kindle anyway.
I like Kindle, but I like some books are worth having as objects as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a luxury to have a book like this in both versions. Really, I mean, I normally wouldn't.
So you've liked
wouldn't actually, yeah, So here's Janet Adler's acknowledgement for your recent committed participation in the discipline, and to some for your contribution of specific gestures or words. Thank you, Ellen Emmet. Then it names just 3 or 4 other people, or 5 other people.
No, I worked quite closely with Janet for a few years, and before meeting her, had known about her work for a long time, and was very inspired by. This book that you're mentioning, she wrote, after I had known her for several years, but she had also written a book you may have read called Arching Backwards. I think and the subtitle is the initiation of a mystic woman, or contemporary initiation of a mystic woman, something like that. And it's her journey. It's more of a personal journey, of her personal journey with her awakening, her Kundalini awakening, and what she did with it.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but yeah.
And that book really spoke to me, not because I was having a Kundalini awakening, but it was more the way that she was really having to surrender to her direct experience at the level of the body, and it affected her life in many ways, at many levels. But she kind of didn't have anybody to turn towards, and she wasn't really part of any spiritual teaching, and she didn't have a therapist at the time that she was working with, and she had to rely solely on her direct experience, and the way she wrote about it, one of the ways she dealt with it was writing. She moved, she practiced this authentic movement, but she also wrote, and the way she wrote was so respectful of direct experience, so willing to describe experience without kind of superimposing too much on top of it. I remember being very touched by that, by the
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was in her first book then, the mystical.
The Arching Backwards, I think,
Yeah.
was her first book. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
no, I haven't read it, but it sounds like from what you're saying that it should be read in conjunction with
it's a very
Offering
beautiful.
from the Conscious Body.
Yeah, it's more of her personal journey, and it's a wild journey with, she had visions and very intense, energetic phenomena through her body. So at that moment, she hadn't organized her experience and formalized it within a form that she did later, as she did later. But
Yeah.
I was very drawn. What drew me, I hadn't yet discovered non-duality and all this, and I was very actively seeking and also attempting to heal my own suffering. And I remember being so very moved by the way she could speak of her direct experience and name it and somehow allow it and welcome it. That was.
And she certainly does that in the book Offering from the Conscious Body.
Yeah.
She focuses again on direct experience or self-awareness. Now, so I in the non-duality highlights, I published like an article on authentic movement. For some reason, like I'm not a body movement person or dancing, but for some crazy reason, I enjoy reading books about dance. I don't know why that is, but
That's interesting.
it's weird.
But you've never tried any of this, or is it just that you don't resonate?
No, I don't resonate, or even, like my best friends are yoga teachers. I don't, they know not to bother me about it. I don't know why. Maybe it's more psychological than anything else, but anyway, that's another story.
Well,
But
it's a good question.
But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I'm interested in it. So authentic movement's always interested me. So I published something in the non-duality highlights, and then you sent me a note saying that it was inspiring to you. And really what I want, maybe what this interview could be about, is what you mean by that.
What I mean by
how it inspired you, because I wrote something about it. I published an article on authentic movement, and then you wrote me and you said you found it inspiring. I think you used the word inspiring. I'm pretty sure.
It was that I was kind of inspired by the fact that you even would have authentic movement on your radar, and that somebody who who kind of promotes and facilitates non-duality being talked about and explored more would actually bring up authentic movement. I was surprised. I was happily surprised, because it doesn't really usually fit into the non-dual realm. It fits into something other, like a mystical practice or a therapeutic practice, or shamanic practice. It belongs to a kind of another realm of experience, and usually authentic movement isn't part of the non-dual world. So that's inspired me. I don't think I wasn't referring to anything in particular that you said.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, she uses the term non-duality and non-dual, but it's not quite as crisp a usage as as people might use who are really immersed in the non-duality teachings.
Well, Janet, she does refer to non-duality and to unitive states, but she's in a way I don't want to label Janet as being not being non-dual, but the framework within which she formulates her understanding is she kind of differentiates between different kinds of experience, the personal experience and transpersonal experience, you could say, and then there are moments that she would name and describe and honor that are unitive moments, moments of unitive consciousness, she calls it. But
Yeah.
when I started working with her, I was very drawn to her formulations. And then, of course, I met Francis after I had met her, and then heard the kind of more, you could say, absolute formulation of non-duality as being our essential nature, what, our true nature. And then, so I revisited after that. I came back to authentic movement, but I kind of reformulated it all. I would now use a different language than Janet, even though I really understand what she's doing, and I find it very useful in a relative realm.
Well, yeah, and of course, I want to get into Francis and all that. I still want to hang around authentic movement a little, because we haven't even talked about what it is to people listening. So,
Exactly.
but before I ask you what it is, you make a good point about formulating your own kind of version of authentic movement, because in that article I published in the Non-Duality Highlights, the author, and I'm sorry I don't have the author's name, it was someone who practices and who's into authentic movement. And that person wrote that authentic movement, I'm just quoting, authentic movement has grown and evolved over many years. Currently, there are many experienced practitioners and teachers of authentic movement. We value the variety and diversity of authentic movement expressions throughout the world. So I guess there's that great freedom of...
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, authentic movement refers to something that's universal and probably has existed in every tradition, every culture, had a kind of ritual space where people got together and move, and the body was a vehicle for energy to come through. And it was a ritual space, and it was usually a way for personal content, collective content to come through in cathartic ways, but also to come through and to how to put this, to break through beyond the personal to the transpersonal realms, that you would, in just allowing energy to come through the body, either in a one-on-one or in a group situation. There's something takes place. It's a journey from the personal to the transpersonal, from a located consciousness to an unlocated consciousness. And you can witness this, I think, over and over again. And I have a feeling, although I'm not an anthropologist, but I know that this was, I just know it because I've read enough, and it's my experience with people. I can see it's a spontaneous, almost archetypal experience that is there within us, ready to be expressed.
It is. Last night I was watching the movie Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
And as I was watching, I was also thinking about it. I was going to be talking to you, and all this authentic movement stuff's in my mind. So at one point they show Crocodile Dundee with some Aboriginal people from Australia.
Yeah.
And he's sitting in a circle, and in the middle there are dancers.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that struck me right away as authentic movement
exactly.
happening in a native culture.
The idea, like for me, authentic movement, the first and foremost kind of...
So let's talk about what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you say a circle, and authentic movement, you could say, whether you're working just with one person or a group, there's always this acknowledgement of emptiness, of not knowing an emptiness, and it takes a physical shape with authentic movement. You actually literally often start sitting in a circle surrounding an a physically empty space, and then the movers. So there are many different ways that it can take place, but usually there's one mover and one witness, or there's a group of movers and one witness, or there might be a group of movers and a group of witnesses. But we don't need to get too technical, but the idea is the mover or movers enter the emptiness and close their eyes, and they wait for an impulse. They allow the impulse to move them rather than having any kind of directive or volitional intention towards moving the body. So that's, it's always up for questioning, how does that happen? But basically they surrender their body. It's as if they were placing their body in an altar of emptiness and not knowing, and they follow the impulses, and these impulses might be of a personal order, of an emotional order, of just a physical sensation, or it might be a vision or a dream. So there's a starting point. It could be anything, but then you let it take you, and there could be sound and rhythm, and 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 it's in this kind of allowing of experience to unfold within this unknowing, within this openness, that something takes place. You know, something always takes place. It's like a journey. It's like, and it could be many different things depending on who has come and what the universe has in mind. You know. So something takes place, and I could talk a lot about the different things that might take place at least in my experience, and then the movement time ends, and the mover or the movers come out of that space.
That could take like what, 10 or 15 minutes or something?
Yeah, I mean, you know, depending on how you facilitate it, or yeah, you take your time. It's because you have kind of descended into a liminal space, or into a kind of trance space, you could say, or into deep meditation. So as you come out, of course, from a non-dual point of view, we're not nobody's gone anywhere, and nobody's surfacing from any. But nevertheless, we're operating. We honor a kind of ritual. There is something taking place where you now come back to a more conventional time and space. You open your eyes and you're back in the more conventional way of experiencing time and space, and you come to your witness, or the movers come to the witnesses, and then there's an attempt at putting words to the experience. The movers always speak first.
Now the witness or the witnesses are on the edge, are they, of the?
Usually, yes, they're on the edge of the space. It's as if the witnesses were embodied pointers to the invisible welcoming witnessing. They're standing in for that ever-present witness, which but obviously a witness, so the witnesses are sitting at the edge of the space, and they, as the movement is unfolding, as they see, they are seen with their eyes open. They are having their own experience, reactions, projections, feelings, sensations. They might be distracted by their thinking, whatever. So they're witnessing their own experience. But again, in that alchemy, in that meeting, in that kind of relationship, something always takes place. That, and often it's a journey from a very personal, dense kind of situation to something more numinous, less located, something of a different order. But we can't, we don't know. There is no agenda.
Janet Adler quotes a lot of those.
Yeah.
Word for word descriptions of what witnesses are saying and of what the movers are saying. So
yes. Okay. There's a lot of that can take place. So I'll just finish describing, the actual kind of ritual. So the movers come out, or the mover comes out, and then there's a time for the mover to speak, to put into words their direct experience, trying to stay as close as possible to the experience, and naming the kind of physicality of it. Instead of going off into an interpretation or analysis, you speak, you kind of, sometimes the suggestion is to speak in the present tense. I am the one who is lying on the floor. I lie on the floor. I feel my weight drops. So you kind of speak right from that raw experience as best you can. Obviously, the experience is now gone. And then, and something then in that moment of experience can take place, because it's unusual, it's an unusual opportunity to speak. It's like the speech of the Grail. You're speaking from truth. You're speaking outside of convention. You're speaking, like in some traditions, the talking stick, where, in the Indian native traditions, where it's a bit like that. You have the talking stick, and you can speak from the depth of your being. And you might have deep intuitions that are ready to be formulated, or very, very acute feelings that have finally surfaced and that need to be shared. Sometimes people cry, or they might have, or a personal story that needs to be shared, that comes to the surface. or silence, or a completely irrational description of of beauty and stillness in your own complete unique way. So it's a moment of creativity, and again, without, you never know. It's a difficult moment, I think. Because we're very conditioned to speak in certain ways. And then once the mover or the movers have spoken, then the witnesses offer their witnessing, which can be taken or let. You don't have to listen to the witnessing if you don't feel like it. And the witnessing is coming from the same very attempt at openness, honesty, and directness. But the witness has a kind of responsibility not to project all over their mover, because you might have a deep reaction to something you witness, and you have to kind of gauge what's appropriate or not appropriate to share. And sometimes that's not an easy discrimination.
There's a nice long paragraph in the book, Offering from the Conscious Body, which shows the responsibilities of the witness. I highlighted it. It's a big paragraph, and it's not easy to be a witness.
No, I mean,
I have it there somewhere, but I don't know. I made a lot of notes and I can't find it. But yeah, it's a lot of responsibilities to being a witness. And then in the article that I put in the non-duality highlights, the writer says that the witness watches and tracks inner responses to the mover with the intention of not judging, but focusing on self-awareness. I mean, right away you're going to see how much you judge. I think right away if you try to be a witness.
Yeah. And you would, exactly. It's a practice. You don't just go out there and start to facilitate authentic movement. It requires having kind of been quite deeply initiated into the practice, and having practiced it for a long time. And Janet is, I know right now she's trying to develop some kind of way to formalize the training, because although it's not really a therapeutic modality, you wouldn't want to train people in it, but nevertheless, I think she's very concerned that people only start to facilitate it when they really are ready to, and because it is a responsibility, and it's not therapy, but it's close, and it's not a spiritual teaching, but actually it is. It can be. It's close, and people come who can have very raw experiences, because the people who tend to be drawn to authentic movement are people who often have they've had some experience in the past, either a trauma that took place at the body level, often abuse, or something that created a what's it called, a dissociative state. And then for some reason, their healing journey takes often, I don't want to generalize, of course, but might lead them to something like authentic movement, where they will have the kind of trauma and the numinous experience they had as they left their bodies will be mingled. There'll be both there. There'll be a mixture of raw reliving of something very, very painful, and at the same time a very numinous and sometimes luminous experience that they had as they left their body. They often had a glimpse into their true nature. So those two things coexist, and you kind of need to be comfortable working with. You see what I'm saying, Jerry? Am I getting too...
Yeah, no. Well, for one thing, I read the book, and she talks about that. She talks about the difficulty of being a teacher of this and the great experience needed. It's just what you're saying. She also gives an example of someone who, discovered a trauma that she didn't know about, but it came out in her body movements. Exactly. The body knows it,
Exactly.
Obviously.
Exactly.
So again, as a teacher or as a witness, I mean, you got to be aware that you're seeing that. And I don't know what kind of what that takes, but I guess quite a bit of,
there's also a first time for everything, and but you do have to. But you would only want to do this practice, witness it, and facilitate it if you had yourself gone deeply into it. So it usually works out fine, But
oh yeah, it's not something you're just going to fool around with. She uses the term longing a lot, so it's nice to have Kindle because you can count how many uses. What did I count?
Yeah, she does. I know, Janet. That's one of her words, longing.
She uses 50 uses the word 53 times. So
Well, I
and
think for her, she really did have this deep, deep longing to find a vessel for her experience, and then also to to honor what she found. Once she went through her journey, and she really realized that there was a kind of, I mean, I think you should ask her, really. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but there was a deep longing to find the container, the shape that could best honor these kinds of experiences. And it's a kind of longing that's of a sacred order, or like a devotional longing. And Janet's somebody who has, great, very spiritual. She's her work is of a spiritual nature, very much so.
in this longing, I mean, it's the whole idea of longing and desire. I mean, it's part of if you go to some of these scriptures like Avadhuta Gita, in the first verse, I know it says about that your desire, you're only saved by your desire for non-duality. It uses those words.
Yes, I mean, it's our deep longing for home, for to rest in our true nature, and it's you could say authentic movement belongs to a more devotional expression of non-duality, or a more kind of Sufi way. It's not the kind of non-dual teaching, the absolute teaching where you from the get-go you start. You are awareness, and you start from there, and then of course you explore what seems to veil that knowing. But when you start with authentic movement, you start with the sense of longing, of the sense of offering, the sense of opening yourself towards that which seems to be out of reach. And it might, and you embark on a journey, and it's a deeply embodied journey. It's really of the body. It's not a rational process at all. It's completely irrational. Irrational in the best sense of the word.
Yeah. I also noticed she used the word practice a lot, like 100 times. So it makes sense that perhaps she's working on, formulating. I don't know. I don't remember what you said. A kind of training, or kind of standardizing
a form
in some way, standardizing the form.
Yeah. Yeah, because a form, in a way, I mean, I find that too. I've taken it somewhere different than Janet, but I also have stayed close to her. I think that's the nature of it. You make it your own. But when I facilitate authentic movement, there is a form, just very simple. It's so light touch, but just the fact of sitting and witnessing emptiness, then the mover steps into the emptiness and closes their eyes, and then a way of marking the end of the movement. Sometimes I gong. And then so that creates a shape, a form, which is but satsang has a form too. We gather.
It is very primal, so that if Janet Adler does come up with this form, I mean, there's probably something primal about it, so that if you learn it, you can branch out and do all kinds of different things with it. I guess it's pretty plastic.
Oh yeah. Exactly. It's not rigid at all. Exactly. It's transparent. It's a form, but it's transparent. And depending on your understanding on how you formulate things, it will sing in a different way. But there'll be I think probably there'll be common things that recur. For example, when you witness a mover, you might begin by experiencing a very conventional sense of time and space. The mover's over there, and I'm over here, and a very conventional experience of time. Tic tac, the kind of. But then, after a while, or after many sessions, you will experience at certain moments that you could never put your finger on it, but there's a quality, there's a shift in quality, you kind of shift, and then you feel the shift in the room, and all of a sudden the sense of being located is much less tangible. The sense of time has shifted. The quality of stillness and timelessness is palpable. Of course, you could never put your finger on it, but it is tangible in the room. And you could begin to name what kind of movements seem to be connected with those qualities. You know, there's like, for example, repetition or alignment, certain postures that are very aligned, or certain mudras that spontaneously happen. Or so you could, but you know, you don't need to do that. But there are things that happen over and over again that become in a way they become ordinary. You know, they're sacred and beautiful. They're beautiful, and they have a function. You know, but they're also very ordinary.
Sounds like satsang, you know, at some points it kind of reaches that, it sounds like.
Exactly, like in satsang, you know, there's always that moment where the silence seems to have taken on another a depth that you feel it, you could touch it, or
and then she talks about moving, of course, but also being moved.
yeah.
And maybe that's what you're kind of touching on. Maybe when you reach that silence, maybe any movement is more like being moved. I don't know.
Absolutely. That would be a very common experience as a mover. You would begin moving, you know, in a kind of ordinary way where you are kind of tuning into energy and sensation and letting that create the impulse. But in the beginning, there's a sense of I'm moving. But then as you give yourself over to the raw sensation or the raw energy or the raw emotion, the sense of agency starts to be turned down. So it's as if it naturally starts to turn itself down, and there's a quality of being moved, of being a part of something bigger than the kind of egoic limits that you're familiar with, and a trusting comes with that, and a deeper knowing. It's as if you knew this all along. You know this universal movement, and so you trust it, and you kind of cooperate with it, but it's not a doing, but there's a kind of, you know, it's very hard to describe. It's a kind of allowing, surrender. It's very creative. It's as if you were one with creativity. You know, at that moment you are one with the way life, shakti. You know, you are shakti in that moment. Of course, these moments don't to last because the mind can step in, or, you know, but there's a beautiful. It's very beautiful to explore. And also, yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it sounds like, you know, this being moved sort of becomes, you know, movement itself, like without a mover. It sounds like that's what you were describing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly that, and it inevitably connects you with the substance. It inevitably renders movement less objective. There's no longer a subject or an object. There's just this movement, which then somehow connects you with something, that which we don't have a name for, you know, reality itself.
Yeah, and to go further into that, then again, the longing has to be there too. It can't, you know.
Well, at that moment, usually the longing has gone, because you're now. But the longing, I would say, would be at the beginning. At the beginning, it's like you've come to the altar. You want to come home. You want to not be in the, you no longer want to feel this limit or this suffering. You're longing. But the longing, if it's the shape of the separate entity, you know, in a way, it's the shape of the ego. So it gets burnt, it gets dissolved through the experience.
Yeah, well, I guess in the midst of being moved, or in the midst of, you know, being in a state where you're not there, then
Exactly.
there is no longing as such. But I think, like you indicated, a person might come out of that and have a taste of it, and then perhaps longing would then emerge again
Well, that's where I
to
find
explore that.
yes, but that's where I find it so nice to then have the non-dual, a kind of deep understanding of what we refer to as non-duality.
Yeah, I know, but I haven't really gotten there yet. So,
Oh,
so,
okay.
so, so pretend you don't know anything about it for another minute or something.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Like I remember.
I'm just trying to see, but an authentic movement, then, yeah. So there might be like a kind of a limit to it, I guess, of
Absolutely.
kind of a
Then
limit to it. I mean, yeah, it's so rich.
you
Uh,
might have an intuition, deep intuition of your true nature through this process.
yeah.
Then of course but if you don't know how to formulate it, and if your facilitator doesn't know or hasn't, then you will tend to interpret it as those are moments, states.
Yeah.
There's unitive states, as Janet calls them, or
Hmm.
states of transpersonal states, and then so therefore you inevitably will want to go back and have that experience again.
Yeah.
You will long to have that experience again because your happiness will be kind of connected with that state. So
Yeah. So authentic movement. It sounds like when you talk about yoga, I know, like I said, I have friends who are yoga teachers, and they all say that their students that come, their students basically want to improve, their physical, mental, emotional well-being,
yeah,
and that's great. It's important. And not and when they want to introduce meditation or talk about non-dual yoga, very, very few people, they say, are really interested in that. Some are, but it's really, you can't, you can't make a living doing that, and they're trying to make a living. So, how true is that for authentic movement then? Do a lot of people go into it to improve their form, their body, their
oh no,
psychological, or
yeah.
is it much deeper? To what degree is
But
it
I would say it's deeper than
non-dual?
that. It's not necessarily to discover their true nature or because they have. I can only speak from my experience. Work one on one with people who come for authentic movement. I have quite a few clients now these days that come specifically for authentic movement, and none of them are non-dualists.
Mm,
However, they definitely don't come to improve their physical form because, then they've chosen the wrong place because it's not, they're not getting a workout with it. And they are, I would say, interested in a therapeutic process, but actually it's deeper than that. They are seeking something. They're usually very sensitive, intuitive beings with a spiritual kind of inclination and,
mm,
and somehow an affinity with exploring that through the body.
mm-hmm.
They've as I said, they've either had some kind of trauma in the past that has been experienced really at a very raw, intense bodily level, so that's where it gets worked out, and that's where the often it that was met with as I said, a kind of dissociative experience, which can be very connected with a spiritual glimpse. So I have found that over and over again. So these people I would say they come to they're they're seeking healing, but they're also in a way kind of seeking a place to practice something they have had an intuition of, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, and sometimes some of the people who come to me because I don't impose a non-dual understanding ever, but if I see that if they formulate something that's coming close to that, I definitely then will validate it and maybe offer some further formulations so that they can then begin to explore that possibility.
Yes.
But not always at all. Not always, because it's sufficient. It doesn't matter if they don't reach a full formulated understanding. If that's not meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I think I'm ready. We might be ready to transition to things like, your discovery of, Francis Lucille. I want to talk about that and something about more about satsang or some of these non-dual gatherings and how authentic movement might apply. But
Yes.
and first, I have a quote here from the book, Offering from the Conscious Body, which shows how authentic movement pertains to almost any field of interest. And she writes, let's see how much of this, I'll just read this paragraph. She says, Janet Adler says, in conversations with me as the teacher, each person who is considering committing to the offering practice chooses one or more ways in which her unique gifts can be developed, guided by her individual aptitude and nature. And those eager to continue working with the relationship between body and word commit to a study and practice of the discipline of authentic movement and embodied text. And then Janet Adler continues, those wishing to bring their study and practice more fully toward the transformation of the gesture itself commit to the discipline of authentic movement and dance. So we got text, we have dance. Then she says, because the discipline is centrally concerned with a developing articulation of body and word, it is natural to witness offering circles filled with dance and poetry or prose. Mm-hmm. But she writes, however, painting, drawing, sculpture, music, theater, and film sourced in authentic movement are also potential realms of rich artistic exploration. And she says some individuals who are increasingly embodying in their practice an energy that is transpersonal in nature deepen their commitment to the discipline of authentic movement, choosing this form to support their developing relationship to energetic phenomena. And as such energy moves through the body, it becomes an offering that can be witnessed and received. And energetic phenomena, I think, is what she refers to. I think she means like awareness itself when she talks about, from what I've gathered. But anyway, the point I think is that, again, authentic movement is a source. It's like a primal source for our developing of, speaking, writing, words, dance, any artistic endeavor, and maybe any endeavor at all.
Yes, so absolutely. If it's a form that speaks to you and calls you, you might be an artist, you might be a musician, you might be a spiritual teacher, you could be anything, and you could do that as simply because it's your joy to do that, or it's a way for you to open the body and the mind, to open them, to receive, to be a channel, to be a vehicle.
Now, this term she uses, energetic phenomena, she uses it quite a bit. I don't think I counted how many times.
Yes, well, very Janet. She coined that term. I mean, she used it originally because of her own experience with the Kundalini, where she had very powerful energetic phenomena. I mean, literally movements of energy coming through her body that were unexplainable and life-altering, and she had visions. So when you say that what she means by that is awareness, I don't think that's necessarily so. What she means by that is phenomena that seems to be of another order, and that is demanding to be related with consciously. In other words, something that could be quite dark or quite intense, or something that is demanding your openness, your surrender, and then eventually you're relating to it consciously. It's something coming from deep down in your psyche or your body that's surfacing to be channeled and contained and understood. And that's what she means by an energetic phenomena. But in the process, of course, you are broken open. You are broken open, and you have glimpses of what she would say a unitive states or a bigger consciousness, or and I would say awareness, your true nature, reality itself.
So that brings up, your own movement, if you will, toward Francis Lucille, who himself, my understanding, teaches some body movements or some kind of yoga himself.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about authentic movement?
Well,
solely authentic movement? Because I want to ask you about how you got into Francis
I'm
Lucille's teachings.
yeah. No, I don't think I mean I I could say more, but
I think you said it in several
I
different ways. Yeah.
a form that I deeply, deeply, I can still go there and close my eyes and something takes place for me. But I know that after working, I moved to California specifically because I wanted to work with Janet, and I was so touched by her book, and I knew I wanted to kind of embark deeply on something with the body, and I loved working with her, and we have a very nice connection still, and but there was still a seeking happen. There was somehow something hadn't completely clicked for me. I wasn't even aware of it, but I was still exploring and reading and seeking, life was putting in my way the non-dual teachings in the form of friends telling me about it, books, and then eventually encountering Francis, turning away from him at first because he was a French guy and he was an engineer or scientist, and he was way too close to my.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really like at first I thought, no way, I'm not going to listen to this French scientist guy. He's just like all the guys in France that my professors at university. I don't. But he just kept coming back. This man that I met, who was such a very lovely guy, gave me like a box full of Francis's tapes, and I thought, okay, I guess I should give this guy a chance. And I remember putting a tape in the car, just sticking a tape in and hearing the words consciousness knowing itself, and it just clicked for me that was just it kind of provoked a glimpse into an understanding. Right.
So when was this? When did you first start?
This was I guess that this was, I'm trying to think quickly, maybe 12 years ago or something.
Okay. Yeah, just trying to get the sense.
And I had been working with Janet. I was still with Janet then. We were exploring very deeply with Janet. I was part of this closed group, and so concurrent to the work with Janet, I began to go see Francis, and it just that was ultimate for me. It was very, very powerful, obviously.
So how did that affect your relationship with Janet Adler?
Well, it was a little bit tricky, to be honest, because I then was kind of completely clicked with the formulations I was hearing of the nature of consciousness being the very nature of reality and my very nature, and so there was no longer a distinction between states of unitive consciousness versus ordinary. I started formulating things very differently, and I would bring it to Janet, and we would have conversations, and they were always very friendly, and they were good, but she wasn't going to go down that road, you see, and I knew I had to go down that road. But there was no conflict, but at some point it was the end of the group, the end of the year, and I stopped working. We agreed that it was, for that time it was a closure, and I went to see her again actually a couple of times just to work with her one-on-one. So it by no means was the kind of the door shut or anything like that, but I was embarking on another phase. And felt very, very grateful for the work I had done with Janet. And now it's funny. One of my clients goes to see Janet. We're still connect. We connect still.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was very important to you. And sometimes this urge or this, again, longing, whatever word, or shift, to find something else. Like you said, you were still, even as deeply as you got into authentic movement, there was still a seeking.
Yeah.
And was it authentic movement that inspired that, or you think that would have happened anyway?
Well,
It's kind of hypothetical, but what do you think?
I think I think authentic movement was a very important portal for me, and still is, and I still feel so drawn to that quality of exploration. But it wasn't. But the glimpses I was getting through my experience as a mover were not being met by any formulations that were satisfying my mind. So the experience themselves were beautiful and would still be equal, but now how they're put into words, how they're held through the mind is different, and that's what I was missing with Janet. And I knew it, but I didn't know it at the same time. There was who knows, with or without authentic movement. In my case, I think because when I went to see Francis, I was very I resonated very, very much with what was being said, but it was the body work that he offered that I feel reached deep into me. And so I'm somebody, we all have different kind of.
Yeah. So Francis, I never really sat in any of it. I don't really know anything about what he teaches, but yeah, I know he teaches a body movement. So why is his teaching of body movement so profound?
Well, it's very different. It's kind of he refers to it as yoga sometimes, or body exploration. It's profound because the sense of being a limited individual consciousness that's located in a body is very profound, right? I mean, would you agree with that? So
yeah,
I mean, maybe not in your case, but it's quite a deep conditioning at the feeling level and at the sensation level. So his yoga and his exploration is you journey very, very deeply into all the ways that in sensation and feelings that perpetuate that sense of being a separate, limited consciousness. And you go deeply into direct experience of the body, and so to establish that the body is really made of sensation. But then what do we mean by sensation? Where does it appear? What is the space it appears in? What is the relationship between sensation and sensing? And then you go on to explore what the relationship between a sound and hearing is, and a thought and the mind, and you through a very experiential exploration, you discover the true nature of the body, and you also allow all the habits, all the somatic habits that we are kind of completely blind to and therefore identified with. All those patterns, those somatic chains begin to be seen. You begin to see and feel what in the body perpetuates this habit of thinking and feeling oneself as separate. So it's very profound, but it's got nothing to do with free movement, or like you don't move free. He uses postures and breathing and meditation. So it's very it's a little bit like in satsang. You explore the belief systems that perpetuate the thinking I'm separate, and then the yoga he offers, you explore the sensations and feelings that perpetuate that. It's extremely profound. It's more than profound. It's kind of, how you say mind blowing for well, it's body blowing. It's body blowing. It's you're left realizing that you what you truly are made of is transparent space, openness, pure sensitivity, unlocated.
I liked what you said earlier when you started talking about this. I can't repeat your words. Something about consciousness. I'm interpreting it as what you said is consciousness taking the shape as the body or something. What did you say?
I don't remember.
But something like that.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like what Francis does is just kind of,
Well,
show that, maybe
he
demonstrate
shows
that.
that really the body, we tend to think that we live inside the body. Consciousness is encaged in a body.
Mhm.
And so through this yoga, we discover that the body flows in me being this unlimited openness, this pure sensitivity, and the body being, and in fact, that's the real body. The real body is discovered to be this awareness. And what we feel our body to be, which we usually feel our body to be kind of dense and kind of repetitive and always here, has a shape, has an age, has a gender, we realize that that's just a flow of energy with thoughts attached to it. And
Mhm.
we can call it our body, but at least to see clearly what it's made of.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, what is it? It's kind of
Yeah,
weird, don't you think?
yeah. I'm because I'm married to Rupert Spira,
Yeah.
and he's extremely clear, and in he conducts similar explorations as I do. And he has such clarity, and when I explore it within myself, I feel the clarity, but I still kind of am dumbfounded by, I don't know, by by it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's good. I mean, how clear can you be? I mean,
Well, I guess you can be as clear as you are clear.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
yeah,
Wow. So, yeah, I had the sense that um, in my notes or just reading about this or thinking about this, I was since authentic movement is related to, Janet Adler uses the word text, but words and maybe even speaking.
yes.
And how has authentic movement like been of value to you in speaking about all this stuff or writing about it? Let me
Well,
just ask that.
yeah. I think maybe you could say that I'm always wanting to be very close to direct experience, speak from experience, and also allow something to arise. Um, I think that would be one way to say how authentic movement resonates on in different activities or teachings activities that I have. But also I have a feel that it's given me a capacity to witness people, really, I mean others, to see and allow and kind of not need to fill in the empty space, not need to interpret experience too quickly at all, and to trust the unfolding of experience deeply, really deeply, but not at a distance, to really kind of be intimate with this unfolding of experience, and that itself communicates something somehow. I don't know how
Hmm.
to explain it very well, but so I've been very inspired by this practice.
We run a group here, and once a month we've had dozens of them over the years. I'm just thinking of a way, a better way of hearing people when they speak, a better way
That's
of letting them come forth.
that's really beautiful.
Ha,
Yeah.
you have any ideas or thoughts or inspirations on how?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that comes to mind is I think I mentioned it earlier because I used to work in a clinic where we did that. We would sit in a big circle. There were quite a few of us, and even though there was a clinical director, at that moment he would abdicate his hierarchical kind of position, and we had a talking stick, and whoever wanted to speak would actually literally physically hold this talking stick, and the idea was then to speak in a way that was, authentic, quote unquote, meaning allowing speech to bubble up from wherever, from the deepest intuition or the craziest, whatever. And the rest of the circle was listening with a listening that was again non-volitional, open, receptive, global, full, not just a listening of the mind, but a listening of the heart, and of the body. and you don't necessarily, and then somebody else takes this talking stick, so you don't respond in the conventional, back and forth of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But the next person might respond. But it was much more about listening and letting the voices surface.
It doesn't sound like there was like a like a formalized witness, unless someone chose to be a witness.
Well,
How would that be if there was actually a witness? So, if someone has the talking stick, and how about if there was a talking stick for a witness for that?
well, I don't know. You'd
What
have
was
to
it?
try it. You'd have to try it.
Okay, well,
It's a nice, very nice idea, Jerry. I think it's it's such a beautiful task to listen, to truly listen to one another and witness, and it's a great practice to bring to our relationships, and to every relationship.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Every relationship, yeah. Gee,
But
yeah.
that you should experiment. I mean, that's a very nice idea.
All right. Well, that's something I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you wouldn't want to
maybe we
get
can do
bogged down in too many words, but you could have the speaker, and then one person would be a witness, and then they would witness, just like as if it was movement.
Yeah, I don't know where that whole thing would go, but it would be something interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think that's missing in some of these group discussions. Someone says something, and then there's no talking stick, but someone will say something, and it might be a response, but there's really not necessarily any witnessing of what that person was saying.
Yeah, it gets lost. Is this in the groups that you have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just in Halifax, we have just 20, 25 people come together about once a month.
Yes.
All
Well,
right, I'm just
you
thinking about
could,
that.
one thing, maybe you could have the talking stick thing where somebody speaks, and then spontaneously the next person who takes the stick is witness. It's because they're gonna witness this speaker.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, but like we said, the witness has to be someone who's pretty experienced. So I wonder if anyone could be a witness or what. Well, I mean, where we're experimenting with it. I guess it doesn't matter. You just got to start.
yeah. Or yeah, you could be the witness, Jared. But you said you don't
I
like
don't
to.
want to be the witness.
You don't want to.
You're making me be the witness.
Well, why not?
I don't know.
What's
I could. Okay. All right. I'm the witness.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you're the witness.
I'm
What?
witnessing that I don't want to be the witness. But no, I could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. I think I'm out of questions. So now the good part of the interview begins.
Is it? Does it?
Huh?
I've enjoyed it so far.
Well, yeah, yeah, I really wanted to hear from you about authentic movement and hear it from your, spirit, which we definitely did. And
Well, good. I hope I conveyed something.
yeah, and get into your experience with Francis. So in my work with non-duality, all I've ever done is just invent my own brand of non-duality all along, and I've included a lot of this stuff that's not considered awareness itself or consciousness itself, but some of the steps, some of the glimpses, some of the mystical experiences, some of the unitive experiences that you experience with authentic movement.
Uh-huh.
In my definition of non-duality, I include all that stuff.
Yeah.
Technically, I mean, that's just my brand of it. So anyone can make up their own brand. So, and I think it's worth, I call it like coming from like the I am.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different word.
I'm now, as you may know, I teach the yoga that I learned from Francis. I mean, I do it my own way, but I've been longing to employ Janet's term to bring the authentic movement into my non-dual offering.
Ah,
To use another Janet word.
yeah.
And I am beginning to. I feel that authentic movement is a beautiful exploration, journeying that completely has a place in a so-called non-dual, you know, exploration or a retreat and
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's good.
I don't feel that because it's you know, you could say it's more a relative exploration, or
mm,
I don't see it that way. I see it as reality's just the dance of reality. You know, reality has through body minds, the
mm.
healing journeys that are witnessed. That it's something very real about it. It's not.
And yet, do you ever have to feel like you have to defend yourself, like someone saying, that's not non-dual, or that's, it's not
Well,
that, it's beyond that.
I have to defend myself against my own inner kind of, I don't know what, that can't reconcile it very well, that struggles with reconciling what authentic movement is with the absolute understanding. So I struggle with my own. Nobody else is telling me
Really.
not to do that,
So
and
like, yeah.
it's just a more of a how does it work? How does it fit? Where does it fit? How do I do it? And I'm finding ways, and it's just a process, and it's.
So in that self kind of defending, like what comes up that's, not non-dual.
Not non-dual.
I mean, what comes up that you have to kind of consider?
Um,
I mean,
uh,
that's maybe, I don't know, too relative or stuff that would
yeah,
be, eliminated, or, I mean, how does that inner dialogue go?
it's that when you kind of do the practice of authentic movement, you're 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 working at different levels. Sometimes you're witnessing a mover with a personal story, and it takes time, and you as a witness are feeling all the layers, and you're completely somehow living in that realm for a while, and you're not in a hurry to get to formulate or reach the absolute, of course. And I know that that's perfectly fine, that's actually how healing operates, but I think I still sometimes, I don't know, actually, as I speak, I'm like, yeah, there's no problem. No, there's no problem. On the contrary, I think it's a very, very beautiful thing. I've been interested in, wondering what a woman, a kind of a feminine way of teaching versus a more masculine, and I think probably something like that is of a more feminine nature. Um, and if you
Yeah.
go to a satsang like with Pamela Wilson, for example, there's this kind of quality of just making a lot of space for an unfolding of what's here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in, I don't know how to say it.
Mm.
Okay,
Well,
I don't know, Jerry.
I don't know, if it has to be put in words, but
No.
you need. Let me try to witness this. I wouldn't know how to be. How would I witness what you're saying? I mean, like I'm failing.
What do you
How
feel?
do you start out? You started with I am. What is it? I gotta look at the book. I'm
Well,
cheating. I'm already cheating by looking at the
but you
answers
could
here.
start, since you're not seeing me, but you're hearing me, you would maybe start by reflecting what you hear. Literally, actually, you might even feed back some words, but then you might.
I'm hearing that, and it says you shouldn't judge or compare, but I'm hearing a difference. I'm hearing that I really don't, like I'm not connected with what you're connected with. I feel that. I hear that, and
You're not connected
uh,
with what I'm connected with.
I mean, like I'm not into the things you're into. Basically, is what I'm saying. And but then that's true for anyone that you talk to or interview or have a conversation with. I guess
Well,
you always feel that gap.
sometimes you resonate more or less, I would have thought. And
Yeah, I guess that's
and
pretty.
also sometimes you meet somewhere else, Jerry. You don't
Yeah,
usually the real meetings, they don't really take place in the content of what's being said. They take place in a kind of quality of sharing, or a connection of the heart, or a connection of silence, or, you know.
oh yeah, yeah, big time. Yeah,
That's really where it's happening. But then we have different journeys. I mean, you said I mean, I'm talking about authentic movement and yoga, and you say you've always loved to read about it, but you're really not wanting to do it. And you know what? You don't have nobody.
yeah. Mm. Yeah, well, that's. And I think she talks about authentic movement like three contexts. One is on the individual body level,
Yeah,
and one is on she calls the collective body, which is like where you have, I guess, more than one witness and mover.
yeah,
And then she talks about the conscious body.
yeah.
Um, and I think maybe at the point of the conscious body, people then meet at that level
Exactly,
that you were just talking about.
exactly. Yeah, there's something that gets shared then, either at the moment where you're witnessing or moving, or when you're speaking. That there's a kind of deeper sharing beyond body mind.
And is that where you got your glimpses that
Yes.
enticed you to?
Yeah, I used to have these really beautiful, and I would always arrive at the end of a movement time, where there was a kind of, I don't know, there was a sense I was being moved, first of all, and then there was the sense of the body had to be placed in very correct positions. It could not, it was just so, the hands and the posture were just so in relationship to space, but the space was no longer this kind of physical space, but nevertheless there was a sense of space. And then I remember hearing the space. I could hear the space, and the sense, the experience of hearing the space was exquisite. And then I remember gestures. I would have these gestures of combing the space, and I was combing strands of light, knowing that, in fact, it was my body. And all these I say they're words, and they're vulnerable to say, and they're also a little bit easy to say, but in context, when it happened, these experiences were exquisite and really very like gems. And I did have glimpses then, which, yeah, which were not being completely met somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
As you're describing these movements, I find them sort of doing them with my
yeah,
hands and.
yes. And actually, when we when we when the body relaxes into knowing its pure sensitive divine nature, then these kinds of movements, or these kinds of expressive unfoldings, they could happen. You could find yourself moving like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as people practice this more and more, and also discover the reality of their make, what they're made of, that it's not dead stuff, that it's so alive, then it becomes much more ordinary to have these kinds of experiences, but it doesn't diminish the beauty of them. And sometimes the healing, it has a function that we don't understand, but I believe it's a healing function. Healing is just a word, but it it's a healing function. Doesn't mean that you're gonna, if you have a sick body, you're gonna get better, but healing in a much vaster way. It's for singing to itself. It's just the most beautiful activity. It's art. It's art. It's like a painter or a musician.
I get the sense that it's all art, you know? Like
Well, it
everything's
is.
art.
It is. It's true. Yeah.
Um, so you're going to be at SAND, Science and Non-Duality Conference, Europe,
Yeah. Are you?
in, well, I'm not going this year. And this
Yeah.
is at the end of this May. We're talking 2013. No, I'm not going to go this year. So, and you're going to be
I'll be there
teaching.
teaching a workshop and teaching some yoga, and also there's a panel on the body that I'll be sitting on.
Mhm.
And otherwise, I have my website. I teach locally, and then I've begun to do weekends. So there'll be some more of those coming up.
Okay.
Um,
Are you traveling much
um,
besides
a,
these conferences? Or?
a little bit, not too much, but a little bit.
Well, I guess Rupert does he travel a lot? Like, my impression is that he's,
He does more. I don't always go with him, but he does definitely travel quite a lot. Yeah,
yeah,
especially America and Europe.
yeah,
Um, but then there are nice long periods where we're home.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Have
he'd be interesting to talk to about art. I think I've enjoyed what he said about art
well,
and
he
that
knows
kind of stuff.
about that, so I'm sure you could email him.
I don't know. I said I have a hard time talking about like, awareness itself or consciousness itself. I really don't know what to talk to about that kind of stuff.
Well, you don't have,
But
you
you know,
talk about that. I you must speak your own language, Jerry, and
right.
you do, so it's perfect.
Um, yeah, I find it more enjoyable to talk about the less non-dual stuff, the stuff that's
Yeah,
the stuff that might lead up to realizations, or
yeah,
like I was saying, maybe like the witness consciousness, or
yes,
I
the
find it
stepping stone.
I find there's more traction there, and then to just talk about awareness itself, I really don't know.
Well, I mean,
I don't know what to
a
say
true
or to
teacher
ask.
doesn't speak about awareness, but experientially kind of points to it extremely directly. So,
Mm.
but of us, others, yeah, you're doing just what you should be doing, Jerry.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have no.
Not that,
Sometimes I feel I should be talking about that, or pointing to that more purely. I just doesn't come out. It is
oh,
not there.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I mean, yeah. So the excuse is that it's all art. So hey, I'm doing my art, whatever.
exactly. Yeah,
Which
you're
is just
singing your song.
true.
It is true, of course it is.
What else? Yeah.
I guess as long as we're kind of, I don't know, as long as it's alive and that we're also kind of exploring the places of resistance or the place of fear, the place of constriction, those are the interesting places to kind of move towards, right?
Yeah.
And then that's it. Then you follow the yellow brick road. So I don't get to see you? You've never turned your video on?
I'll turn it on. I mean, I'm just sitting here.
I've turned on mine. Hello.
I just got to put some spit into my hair and get rid of the belly dancers. And yeah, you look great.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear. You don't
You
need
look.
to.
Turn on video.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah,
Hello.
I just got to.
You're wearing a baseball cap.
Well, I'm facing a window right in front of me, and it got glare.
Okay.
I don't put the shades down. So hi.
Hi. Are we done, you think? Do you have more questions or are we
Oh, I don't
almost?
know. Did we cover a lot?
Well, I don't know. At least for first talk, I mean, we could do another one of these days because you know how it is. For me, it's like you do it you do it once and then you think, oh, that would have been nice to say and that.
Yeah, when I edit and I'm listening again, I'm saying, like, why didn't I ask? Why didn't I follow up on that? It was a beautiful
Yeah.
thing, and you miss things. But we
Oh,
both got pillows behind us. I got a pillow.
yeah.
You got a pillow. What's with that?
Maybe
There's
we should
something.
share the pillow experience.
So, are you in bed or something?
Yeah, I'm sitting in my bed, but I'm
Okay,
not inside the bed. I'm on the bed.
you're on the bed. Okay, I'm half in bed.
Well, thank you very much. You know, it's nice for me to talk about this stuff. So.
No, thank you very much, Ellen. Really appreciate it. And
Well, I'm
it's
sorry I
great.
won't see you.
Huh?
Sorry, you be at Sand in October?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't make plans to. I kind of wait to the last minute.
Okay.
You know, that's kind of how I live, I think.
Well, that's cool.
So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. All right.
Okay. Well, thanks,
Thank you.
Jerry.
It's an honor speaking to you and hearing from you about this. It fascinates me, authentic
Okay.
movement.
Well,
Okay.
you can be in touch anytime if you want to talk more.
Thank you.
Okay. Lots of love, Jerry.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.